Good morning, everybody. We all know the first 10 amendments as the Bill of Rights, but what about the other amendments? Well, they are there because of circumstances that came up that the framers couldn't foresee, and one of those had to do with fine-tuning how elections are done at the national level. And that fine-tuning happened with the 12th Amendment, which went into effect on this date, September 25, in 1804. George Washington gave his farewell address in 1796, and 3 years later he died, age 67. So Washington departed the political stage. Prominent people on that stage were Alexander Hamilton, a Federalist, Thomas Jefferson, a Democratic Republican or anti-Federalist. So early on, we really have two political parties. And they disagreed about fundamental questions. For instance, who should rule? So the Federalists thought it should be the elite, like the guy on the horse. The anti-Federalists thought it should be more the common people. So in a democracy, who should have the greatest influence? Another big difference had to do with the power of the state governments, which the Anti-Federalists preferred, or a strong central government, which is what the Federalists liked. And then how do you read the Constitution? So the Federalists said government can do anything that isn't specifically prohibited, whereas the Anti-Federalists said the government can't do anything unless it's specifically allowed. So which is it? And then another issue that divided parties then, not so much today, is the power of the bank. Federalists liked a strong central bank. Anti-Federalists wanted weaker banks that were basically state and local banks. So look at the map here, 1796, the election, and you'll notice John Adams, who was a Federalist, won, and he defeated Thomas Jefferson. But when Adams set up his government, guess who was his vice president? Well, it was Jefferson, because Jefferson was the runner-up in the Electoral College, and that's how it was set up. So they didn't foresee that the winner and the runner-up might be political opponents. A big part of our story, too, is the undeclared war with France. Notice the quasi-war. So here's the USS United States, our first frigate. Old Ironside will be one of those. And we were really in conflict with the French. So this led to a lot of pressure in government. And one response to this by the Federalists was to pass the Alien and Sedition Acts in 1798, which basically limited criticism of the government. It basically limited First Amendment rights. And the serpent, which is the bills of the government, are going after these kids who are the rights people have. And this really made Jefferson and Madison mad. And they wrote the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions at the end of 1798, in which they said that a state can nullify a federal law it finds unconstitutional. This was in response to these Alien and Sedition Acts. But it did raise the larger question of who gets to decide constitutionality. Is it the states? Is it the Congress? Is it the courts? And in 1801, President Adams appointed John Marshall to be on the Supreme Court, and it was under the Marshall Court in a few years that the court will take for itself what we call judicial review, and the court now decides if something's constitutional. So in the election of 1800, there was a tie in the Electoral College. Jefferson and Aaron Burr tied. Alexander Hamilton couldn't stand Aaron Burr, didn't like Jefferson either, but he used his influence for the House of Representatives to pick Jefferson. And Burr was so mad, he challenged Hamilton to a duel, and in July 1804, Burr wounded Hamilton in New Jersey. They took Hamilton across the river back into New York City, where he died, and Aaron Burr just took off. So our event on this date, September 25, 1804, the 12th Amendment went into effect where they used two ballots, one for the president, one for the vice president. So when you vote this year, just reflect upon our political process and how, going back to the beginning, it has had lots of drama.